We've got what I would consider to be a pretty decent Space Wolf recipe. We use some Rattlecan primers to generate some zenithal highlights, and then use some contrast paints to let those zenithal breathe through, which makes some really nice like light and dark shadows. However, there are a couple issues with that recipe, and I have recently picked up an airbrush, so I thought we could try and do the same recipe with an airbrush to see if it fixes those problems and makes our Space Wolf recipe better. And here we are, some Space Wolves on the hobby desk for the first time in, God, ages. I can't remember the last time I painted them, but I do absolutely love them. They're so much fun, and I'm very keen to see if we can update our recipe and make them look even better with an airbrush. So we just quickly move these guys to one side, not to spoil what's coming, and just start on our actual recipe that we've got at the minute and how we do it. And like I mentioned in the intro, it's a zenithal sort of prime effect where we take a black base and then we apply a grey or a lighter primer over the top, but in more like a cone to emulate light, just in case you've not zenithal highlighted before. I got a little like clip here of me priming up this dude. So as you can see, we've already primed him in black, and then we take the rattle can from like upwards, never going underneath or like under the mini, because we want the black undercoat to sit in the shadows. And what that creates is this cool effect you can see here. So we've got all the grey from the top down, creating some nice light sections. Then when you tip him upside down, he's got all those cool shadows from that black primer sitting in there. That's how we prime the mini. And then after that, we just take a really thin coat of Space Wolves grey contrast. Yeah, there it is. And then, what is this? Tyran blue. We basically take these two colours, water them down, and apply a really thin layer. And then that way the zenithal highlights can sort of seep through, but they're just tinted a bit grey and blue to make Space Wolves. And what does it look like? Well, these two dudes here. So it does look quite cool. Got some nice like light sections, like this hand here, you can see it's a little bit brighter. And as we get underneath, it gets a little bit darker. But as you can see, it's got some problems. So the rattle can is very like spattery. So you can see the knees are very, very grainy, especially on like this elbow here. And plus the transitions from light to dark aren't as smooth as I'd like to be, you know. It's not horrendous, but just a couple problems I'm hoping the airbrush will fix, because the transitions from the airbrush should be a lot smoother. And then also we can get a lot more detailed, granular. I can't think of the right word. Maybe granular is the right word. But anyway, more granular with the airbrush, because we can, rather than just doing a general spray from the top, we can literally like apply some shadows in here or a little bit of grey from there, maybe even put some white in and be like, this section of the backpack would be really bright because it's so high. So I've definitely waffled on long enough. Let's plug in this airbrush, fill it with some greys and whites. Let's see if we can apply some nice zenithals to our lovely Space Wolf here. And here we are, airbrush in hand and ready to apply some zenithal highlights. So my plan going into this is to use the same 3 grey colours I highlight black with, which is Eshin Grey, Dawnstone and Administratum Grey. And so we're kicking things off with the Eshin Grey here. And I'm just going to be quite aggressive with it. Just do a big, aggressive, wide, top-down zenithal. Just trying to catch, like, to be honest, almost everything. Just leaving some of the recesses and some of the most, like, hidden sections dark. Although I will say we are going to come back a little bit later on and reapply some shadows in there. So if I go a little bit OTT with this and it gets into the recesses, that's not too bad. It's probably a good thing, actually, because we want to try and have, like, more control, go back in, fix things up with that Corvus black, like that's the whole point of this video. So actually it might be a good thing going a little bit wild. But then moving on from that, we're going to crack out the Dawnstone, and this is going to be similar, quite large swaths from the top down, but a little bit more isolated. So on like the top of the head, because it's like obviously really prominent and like, you know, the highest facing section. And same with the backpack, these are going to be the easiest to highlight. And then we'll go around to like the hands, like just the top sections. Trying to be a little bit more controlled than the Eshin Grey, but still a little bit like wild. And just try and catch some of the backpack as well. And then also, yeah, this is the bit I'm excited for, like all the really prominent pokey out sections, like this knee where we can just get really like wild and blast like loads of it and really make it pop and shine. And then in the same vein on the foot there, it's quite cool. Like I mentioned, I'm really keen to take these sections that are very obviously poking out and prominent and really apply some highlights onto them. And then after that, we're going to finish off the greys with that Administratum Grey, like I mentioned. So this is going to be where we're getting quite selective and being like, okay, just the really, really prominent sections. And we're not even going that wild, just small, short bursts, quite close to the model. So we've got like the knee, again, going to put a little bit more highlights on there. A little bit of the chest piece is poking out. I guess it's his right-hand side or left on the camera. The one there, you can see me spraying. The side of his leg is quite exposed, so I thought we could chuck some highlights there. Because it would catch like a lot of light, and then like I mentioned in the last step, just more on the head and the backpack. Try and catch some of these hands that are just poking out, just to the areas that would catch the most light, really. And then finishing things off with the bit I'm most excited for, and that is taking Corvus Black and reapplying some shadows into the recesses. Just because this is something you can't really do with a rattle can, you don't have control. I guess you could tilt the Mini upside down and try, but I feel like it'd be really messy. So yeah, I'm really keen to go into these little sections here, like in the armpit and like underneath his thigh and stuff, where like you can just add a little bit more shadows. Really, really cool. And then yeah, just blasting in every little recess, nook and cranny I can find, just to apply some more shadows to create some more dynamic lighting, like in between his legs just there and underneath his arm. Right, we've just jumped ahead a teeny tiny bit, not to spoil what we've just done, but I've airbrushed that Mini you just saw and then put some contrast paints on it, which we're going to see in a second. We're going to go back to that, don't worry. But it's a lot darker than I thought it was going to be, and a lot darker than I'd like it to be. So what I've done is I've got loads and loads of Space Wolves that need repainting. So I just grabbed another one and did the exact same thing we just did. A whole bunch of grey highlights from the airbrush, but I also pushed it a little bit further and added some white as well. And this is what we've got, something that's a lot brighter. So we have actually got two Space Wolves that we're going to be painting and looking at in this video. But yeah, the original guy that we're going to go back to in a sec was just like kind of quite dark all over. But with this dude, I did the same 3 greys, and then I also took some white and just blasted it on this section here, because it's like the highest facing, this knee, and then some on the top as well. So yeah, I'm just a little update on like what's going on when this extra Mini appears in the video and looks a bit different, and so you're wondering where's that come from. That's what happened. So I guess let's go cut back in time to the first Mini. Oh, this is looking really interesting and really cool, you know. So obviously we've got on the left, this is the Zenithal Prime with the rattling can, just the black and the greys, and then on the right, just here, we've got the airbrush that we've just done, and this is looking really nice. Like immediately, it's fixing a lot of the issues that I mentioned. On this guy, the transitions are like a bit spattery, not as like soft, whereas here they're very nice and soft and gentle, like especially on that knee here, going down across the chest into the shadows. It's kind of hard to see because the sword is in the way, which is quite funny because it would block the light. But yeah. Some softer transitions. I definitely think I could have gone brighter on this guy though, especially when you compare the two. Like this one's very in your face and bold. This one's a lot darker. I think because I'm quite new to the airbrush, one lesson I need to learn and remember is when the paint is wet, it looks brighter, and then when it dries, it gets a bit darker. Because when it was wet, I was like, yep, these two sections, which are the brightest, they're really bright and bold. I went the foot as well. But now that it's dried, I'm like, oh, actually, I could have probably put a little bit of white on these two. I think everywhere else is pretty fine. I would like to maybe put a tiny bit of white here because this bit sort of poking out would catch the light. But I do think the vibe overall of what we're going for has definitely worked. We've got those nice bright sections on top if you look like top down. But then when you look underside, so we've got like the nice bright hands, and you get underneath, there's all the shadows. Yeah, so I guess what we can do now is put on some paint on the Mini actually, to be fair. So yeah, we're just getting some Space Wolf contrast grey just down here, and then I'll grab some Larnium medium actually, if I can find it. Cool, yeah, so a nice big helping of Larnium medium in there just to sort of really thin it down, just so we can tint this Zenithal we've got with Space Wolf grey rather than like covering it and sort of losing Zenithal. We want to preserve these highlights we've got, so we're really thinning it down. And a good place to start is always the back of the knee, just because if you mess it up, it's kind of hidden. So it's a nice slow application just here of Space Wolf contrast. There we go. Try not to go over the same area twice because you also get smudges. I find this recipe really tests your contrast skills and your application of contrast paints. I will say if it looks like it's not really doing much, that's actually the intended effect, because like I mentioned, we don't really want to like cover the Zenithal completely. We want to just tint it a little bit. So this first round I'll add a nice sort of like grey tint to it, and then the second round with Tyran blue will be the same, heavily watered down with Larnium medium. And then again, we'll just tint it just to add a little bit more of a darker blue hue to it. So yeah, I'm just going to go around and keep applying this Space Wolf grey and a nice, just one thin coat to all of this armour. Then we'll bust out the Tyran blue, and then we can come back and see what the armour looks like before we apply some details. Cool, just a little midpoint update just to see how these guys are coming out now that I've done the Xenofall and the base armor coats. We will finish the rest of the details off because I definitely feel like you need to do all those details to make a good comparison. And also, when we compare these two next to each other, really not fair, is it, that this guy's got gold and brown and yellow. So what we'll do is we'll quickly look at these guys just to see how they're looking after the initial coat, and then we'll go fill in the details and do a proper breakdown because I've definitely got a lot to say about them. But just touching on, like I mentioned, the dude on the left, quite dark, a lot darker than I thought it was going to be, but it's looking quite cool and interesting. And then this dude on the right, I guess actually let's just move this boy and compare. There we go. Yeah, I do think initially, like my first gut reaction looking at both of them next to each other, like the old recipe and the new, I think it has fixed a lot of those issues I mentioned. So like just down here on the knee, that transition from like a bright to a dark is a lot smoother. Initial thought is, yeah, it's fixed a lot of the problems. We've got a lot more control, so we can see those big separations, and that transition is a lot smoother. Yeah, looking cool. I do think it's we're definitely on the way to fixing the recipe and making it better. I guess it's hard to see this. It's hard to see this guy because he's in so much motion, but he's, yeah, got some nice transitions. They've just not really popped as much as the other dude because I didn't use bright white colours, which is a bit of a shame. I guess on that backpack it's you can kind of see the vibe we're going for. But like I mentioned, just need to fill in some details for these guys now, just to bring them up to the level of the finished guy, just so we can have a proper comparison at the end. So, I'm going to slap on, I guess we can start with all of the non-metallics. Right, I'm pretty sure, apart from the face, that's all of the non-metallic details. And I was thinking, I was like, oh, there's not that much on these guys, to be fair. It's just like the sword, the belt, and then one trinket. The other guy's got, where is he? He's got like some tiny little wraps around the knee. Yeah, he's got like a little sort of thing down there, and one around his wrist. So a couple of little extra bits. But for the most part, they're pretty simple, you know, just, yeah, the weapons and the shoulders. But I have forgotten how many layers and layers of red and yellow you need to put on these shoulders to get a smooth application. I was doing the yellow and I was thinking, like, I remembered everyone says to put down like a pink or purple beforehand, and that makes the application a lot easier. Oh, actually, I could probably do the gem as well while we're doing this. I completely forgot about that in the middle. But yeah, I remembered like after the second coat, I was like, yeah, I should have tried that, but it's fine. It's looking pretty smooth, to be fair. I might need to do one more coat, but it is coming along nicely. I definitely think it's adding a lot to the Mini. It always does. These big, huge coloured shoulder pads really helps like frame the whole model. So once we finish this gem, we can move on to the metallic details, which will be a gold trim for this gem. Some silver bolts everywhere, some silver on the weapons and the backpack, and that might be it, to be honest. Oh, it's pretty much done now, to be fair. I forget how few things are on these boys. Like, from the waist down, there's, like, nothing, really. I imagine it's because so many of the minis are, like, in motion and, like, running. I imagine it's quite hard to sculpt, like, lots of stuff going on below the waist when you're, like, you know, on the move. But that's all of the metallics, all of the non-metallics and the details. Just need to finish up the final thing, which is the face. Luckily, this other dude has a helmet, so I just slapped some red eyes on him. Nice and easy. But this dude, I'm going to put some Kislev Flesh and Riekland Fleshshade over the face. Not going to go too crazy. I do really want to work on faces, but the whole point of this video is looking at the armour and stuff. Annoyingly, though, I did get a tiny bit of Kislev Flesh just on the collar here, and I can't exactly whip out the airbrush and the contrast paints to fix that, so that's kind of annoying. But I guess that's one point to make about using airbrushes and contrast paints to get these highlights, is you need to be super careful when it comes to applying the details, because it's harder to fix them with acrylic paints. But just going to slap on this Kislev Flesh. I also need to draw a freehand pattern on the shoulder and try and make it look like it was drawn by someone older than the age of 5, because I've not done freehand patterns in a while, and even when they were fresh in my mind, they weren't great. But to be fair, I did whip up this dude's one, and it's not horrific. It does the job, doesn't it? And then maybe a transfer on the shoulder, and we can take a look at these boys, get a nice, decent, accurate look at all the highlights, and answer the question of, have we improved our Space Wolf recipe? And here they are, our new and improved Space Wolves, and oh my god, just no more suspense, no building this up. This was a resounding success. I'm so happy with how they turned out. So the whole point of this video was, can we take our current Space Wolf recipe, which is the Zenithal of black and grey and contrast paints, and improve it with an airbrush? And the answer is yes. Like I said, no suspense, no build up, 100%. So I guess if we remove this dude, we'll come back to him later. Definitely got some stuff to say. If we compare these guys. So yeah, the main issue was 2 problems. The Zenithal from the can, this old recipe, there was a lack of control. You couldn't really pick where you wanted the greys to go because you have a massive spray can. And the transitions weren't really that soft. They're like quite splattery. Like if you look on this guy's shin just round here, it's not like a nice smooth light to dark. It's very like grainy. And I guess if you flip them upside down to get the shadows, yeah, it's not really great, but it's not really that smooth. So we grabbed out the airbrush and we tried to fix both those problems, and I think we've had just a great success with it. Yeah, here he is. And I will say, just for clarity, for context, this is not the best painted Space Wolf ever. I wasn't actually going for, like, can I paint the most pristine dude possible? I was purposefully doing different things just to experiment and try to fix the problems. So, for example, what we did for the first problem, which was we didn't have much control, I've purposefully sprayed some really bright sections and then left some other sections quite dark. So we've got the knee up here and the knee there. There's like some bright sections just in here. And then we spin him around, like added like a blast here. The lighting overall is a bit inconsistent. Like there's no one light source coming down from an angle. It's like, yeah, there's like some light here, there. He's spinning around on like this leg. But like I mentioned, I was doing that on purpose just to try and, for experimentation and science, if you will say, to try and see if we can like fix that problem. And I think we have done. It's really nice. So I did the light sources like we just saw. I also resprayed some Corvus Black into this section because I was like, the arm would be blocking it. So kind of reapplied some shadows there. And then I also reapplied loads of shadows down here just to see if we could, to see what it would look like. And yeah, I think it's great. Like we've got such nice control where we've picked and choosed where we want the shadows and the lights to be with the airbrush. It's great. It's really nice. And then in the similar vein, the transitions are really, really good. Like this shin here is probably the best example. We like tilt him a little bit. So I added some extra highlights on the shoe, the knee, but I left it down here to be a bit darker. And that transition all the way down looks really good. So we zoom in. Yeah, it's from that like light on the top there and like going down into like the crevice. There's like some nice shadows. It's a real soft transition. And then I guess on the back of the foot here as well, like a nice and bright. Then as you go into like that crevice, it gets a bit darker. Just one final look at the two guys and their OG counterpart. Yeah, like especially when you put them next to like some of the original ones. In fact, let me grab some different Space Wolves. Yeah, look at that. So we've got a head taker there, this dude on the side. It's like night and day. It's just so much smoother. Like the arm replication's nicer. There's some like brighter highlights and nicer transitions. I will say one minor thing. I'm not really sure. This is just a personal, like, I don't know what you do, but maybe it's something I can learn. what do you do like with edge highlights and stuff after this? So we've got our volumetric highlights on like the knee, the chest, and like the pokey out sections. But where do we take this guy? Like, do we edge highlight like round here or the armor at all to make it pop a little bit more? Or do you, if you do these like airbrush highlights, are you supposed to leave them? I guess let me know in the comments down below, because I have no idea, and you guys are much better than me. So you can tell me what to do, and then maybe we can try it out in another video. There we go, an absolute success. Oh, I love it. You know, sometimes I get worried with the videos because I do a lot of like challenges and I try new things, so we fail a lot. And I do think that makes the channel good, and that's what I want to convey, like the real experience of sometimes you try something, it's not great, sometimes things don't work out or whatnot. But I do get a little bit anxious sometimes. I'm like, man, do people get bored of watching every video? Be like, we tried, but it's not that great. But so it's nice to do this and it'd be like a resounding success. Like, I'm really happy with the outcome. Like I said, they're not the best painted Space Wolves, but I didn't go into this video being like, that's it, we're going to craft these masterpieces. I had a set goal to be like, these are the problems I want to fix. This is how we're going to try and fix them. And we did. Really, really cool. Although it's kind of a bad thing because I'm trying to focus on my Black Templar army. Now I kind of want to paint some Space Wolves, you know. I've just got some remnants of the army box, but like in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, I could strip one or two of these little minis down here and like start again. They are really fun to paint. They're super cool. Oh, we'll have to see. I've got like way too much Black Templar stuff to paint, and like I said, I want to get my army done so I can play some actual games. So I will try and focus on that. But it is always really fun to have a little bit of like a palette cleanser and try something new, just so you don't get a little bit bored. And same for the channel as well, so you guys don't watch me paint the same like Black Templar recipe over and over again. It's quite cool to do some new stuff for you guys. But as always, I really appreciate the support, and thanks for watching. Drop a like and subscribe, and thank you to everyone who supports the channel via Patreon. All of these are lovely people here. There's a link for it in the description down below, and there's also a link to Discord that is completely free. Don't need to pay to join that. Just come and show me all the cool things you're working on and chat about the hobby. It's great fun, I really enjoy it. But thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye!